The weight of invisible chain. Sienna Torres pressed her palm against the cool marble pillar, willing the ballroom to stop its relentless spinning. Around her, the Meridian Industries annual gala has sparkled with excessive elegance. Crystal chandeliers scattered light across champagne glasses and designer gowns, creating an atmosphere of success and celebration that felt utterly foreign to her reality. She tugged at the burgundy dress borrowed from her neighbor, suddenly aware of how the fabric bunched awkwardly at her waist, how the hemline sat just wrong enough to broadcast its second-hand origins. At 26, Sienna felt decades older. Her reflection in the ballroom's gilded mirrors showed dark circles carefully concealed beneath makeup, cheekbones too prominent from skipped meals, and eyes that held the exhaustion of someone running a marathon with no finish line. Marketing coordinator by day, warehouse inventory specialist Tuesday through Thursday nights, weekend receptionist at a veterinary clinic. 3 jobs, 3 alarm clocks, 3 different versions of herself, all held together by sheer determination and caffeine. The mathematics of her existence were brutally simple. 3 incomes barely covered Leo's medical bills, the experimental treatments insurance refused to authorize, rent for their cramped apartments in the outer borough, and the groceries that never seemed to stretch far enough. Her 22-year-old brother, brilliant and kind, lay in a hospital bed fighting an illness that had no guaranteed cure, only expensive possibilities. When perfection crumbled as a server glided past with a tray of delicate appetizers, Sienna's stomach twisted with hunger, but she had learned to ignore such signals. The protein bar in her purse was reserved for tomorrow's lunch, and she had already committed tonight's meal budget to Leo's prescription copay. She accepted sparkling water instead, the bubbles creating uncomfortable pressure against her empty stomach. Across the expansive room, Damian Cross commanded attention without effort. The CEO of Meridian Industries stood near the grand staircase, his presence a gravitational force that organized the social dynamics around him. Tall and impeccably composed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly salary, he possessed the kind of natural authority that made people straighten their posture when he entered a room. But it was his eyes that had always unsettled Sienna, a penetrating grey that seemed to see through carefully constructed facades. In 3 years at Meridian, she had spoken with him directly perhaps 15 times. Brief exchanges about campaign metrics, quarterly presentations, the occasional elevator small talk about weather and deadlines. Yet recently, she had noticed something shifting. His gaze found her across crowded conference rooms. His path through the office intersected with hers with suspicious frequency. His questions during meetings seemed designed specifically to showcase her expertise. She told herself it meant nothing. Men like Damian Cross existed in a completely different universe, one where decisions were made over $1,000 dinners and vacations meant private islands, not working through weekends. The moment everything changed, Samine jostled her elbow, and champagne slouched dangerously close to her borrowed dress. The sharp, yeasty scent made her head swim. The ballroom suddenly felt suffocating, too warm, too crowded, too loud. Conversations around her blurred into meaningless noise, words losing their distinct edges and melting together into overwhelming static. Sienna tried to focus on the discussion happening nearby, something about quarterly projections and market expansion, but her vision began narrowing at the edges. Darkness crept inward like a slow fog, erasing the glittering details of the room piece by piece. She set her water glass down, or attempted to, but her fingers refused to cooperate. The crystal slipped from her grasp, shattering against the marble floor with a sound that seemed impossibly amplified in her ears. Faces turned toward her, mouths opened in expressions of concern or surprise, moving in slow motion, a film played at half speed. The floor tilted violently beneath her feet, and Sienna felt her knees buckle, felt gravity claiming her with inexorable force. She braced for impact, for the humiliation of collapsing in front of colleagues and superiors, for becoming tomorrow's whispered gossip in the break room. Instead, strong arms caught her, one behind her shoulders, one sweeping beneath her knees, lifting her against a solid chest as consciousness fled. The last thing she registered was the scent of cedar and bergamot, the steady rhythm of a heartbeat, and a voice rough with concern murmuring her name, prayer. Awakening to truth consciousness returned gradually, accompanied by sensations that made no sense. Soft leather beneath her body, the gentle stroke of fingers through her hair, a heartbeat steady and strong beneath her cheek. Sienna forced her eyes open, blinking against soft lamplight that revealed an unfamiliar office, all dark wood and leather. Distinctly masculine and expensive, Damien Cross looked down at her with an expression of such raw concern that it stole her already fragile breath. His jacket was draped over a nearby chair. His tie hung loose around his neck. The top buttons of his dress shirt were undone, revealing the hollow of his throat, and he held her cradled in his arms, as though she was something infinitely precious and fragile. "Welcome back," he said softly, his voice rougher than she had ever heard it. "You terrified me, Sienna. The paramedics cleared you medically, but they said you need rest and proper nutrition. When did you last eat a full meal?" The question, delivered with such careful gentleness, made tears prick at her eyes. Mortification flooded through her as memory returned. The fainting, the shattered glass, the spectacle she had created in front of everyone. "Yesterday morning," she whispered. "Maybe the day before. I should get up. This is inappropriate. Everyone must be talking." His arms tightened slightly, keeping her secure without force. "Let them talk. Sienna, you have been working yourself into the ground. I have watched you arrive before dawn and leave after midnight. I have seen you stumble with exhaustion and catch yourself against walls when you think nobody notices. Do you have any idea how much that terrifies me? You have been watching me." The question emerged smaller than intended. "Every single day for the past 8 months, Damien admitted, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone. "Trying to find the courage to tell you that you are the most brilliant person in this company, that watching you slowly destroy yourself is killing me, that I have fallen completely, impossibly in love with you." The confession that changed everything. Sienna stared at Damien, certain her oxygen-deprived brain was manufacturing delusions. Men like him did not fall in love with women like her, did not hold them with trembling tenderness, did not look at them as though they contained entire universes worth exploring. "I don't understand," she whispered, her fingers unconsciously curling into the fabric of his shirt. "Why would someone like you care about what happens to someone like me?" Damien was silent for a long moment, his jaw working as though selecting each word with extraordinary precision. Finally, he adjusted her weight, shifting so he could look directly into her eyes without releasing her entirely. 8 months ago, I was working late on the Henderson acquisition. It was past midnight. I thought the building was empty. His voice dropped to something intimate, meant only for her. Then I heard someone crying in the small conference room on the 3rd floor. It was you, Sienna. You were on the phone, sobbing so hard you could barely form words. You kept saying you would find a way, that you would figure it out. That Leo just needed to hold on. Heat flooded Sienna's face as the memory surfaced sharp and painful. That had been the night she learned Leo's insurance had denied coverage for the treatment that might save his life. The night she had let herself break completely because she thought she was alone. When observation became devotion, "Then till you pull yourself together," Damien continued, his hand tracing absent patterns on her shoulder that sent shivers down her spine. "Watched you wipe away tears, straighten your clothes, fix your makeup. 10 minutes later, you walked back to your desk like nothing had happened. The next morning, you delivered the most brilliant presentation on the healthcare campaign had ever witnessed. You were exhausted and heartbroken, and you still outshone everyone in that room. That is when I started really seeing you," he said, voice rough with emotion, "not just as an employee with impressive metrics, but as this extraordinary force of determination and grace under impossible pressure. I started finding excuses to review your work personally, to include you in high-level meetings, to walk past your office just to verify you were all right. And every single day, I fell deeper." Sienna's heart hammered against her ribs. "Damien, you are my boss. This is impossible. The power dynamics, the ethics, what people would say, is it impossible?" His hand slid to rest over her heart, feeling its frantic rhythm. Because this feels devastatingly real to me. The way you are looking at me right now. The way you have been watching me when you think I am not paying attention. Tell me I am imagining it, Sienna. Tell me you feel nothing. And I will never mention this again. The truth that could not be hidden opened her mouth to do exactly that. To protect herself from inevitable heartbreak. From wanting something so impossibly out of reach. But the words would not come. What emerged instead was raw, terrifying honesty. I cannot tell you that, she admitted, voice barely audible above the distant sounds of the gala, continuing floors below. Every time you walk into a room, I feel it like electricity on my skin. Every time you look at me, I forget how to breathe properly. I have spent 3 years telling myself it was just professional admiration, just respect for someone successful. But it is so much more than that. And it absolutely terrifies me. Damien's eyes closed briefly. When they opened again, they blazed with something that made her stomach flip. Then let me help you. Let me take away the fear of losing your apartment, of choosing between food and medicine, of working yourself to death trying to save Leo alone. I cannot accept charity just because you have feelings for me, Sienna protested, even as her soul wept at the thought of refusing. That would make me exactly what people would assume I am. This is not charity. Damien's voice turned firm, commanding in the way that made boardrooms fall silent. This is recognizing exceptional talent being wasted because the system is fundamentally broken. Sienna, I am offering you the position of Senior Marketing Director. The role has been open for 3 months, and you are the only person truly qualified for it. Her breath caught. Senior Director was 4 levels above her current position, the kind of promotion that typically required a decade to achieve. There are people with more experience, with better credentials. The offer that defied logic, none of them increased client retention by 48% in a single quarter. Damien countered. None of them redesigned our entire digital strategy and saved the company $4 million. None of them have your instincts, your creativity, your ability to identify solutions where everyone else sees insurmountable problems. You earned this promotion 8 months ago. I have been holding the position open, waiting for the right moment to offer it to you. Before Sienna could respond, Damien reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He tapped the screen several times before handing it to her. She looked at the email displayed, her vision blurring as she tried to process what she was reading. It was correspondence between Damien and the director of Columbia Medical Center discussing Leo Torres, experimental treatment protocols, clinical trial eligibility, and funding arrangements. What did you do? Her voice cracked on the question. I contacted the best oncologist in the country 3 weeks ago and explained Leo's situation, Damien said gently. He reviewed Leo's medical files and believes he is an excellent candidate for a clinical trial that just received FDA approval. The treatment would be fully covered, and the program provides stipends for living expenses during the trial period. Leo could start as early as next week if he qualifies after preliminary screening. When walls finally crumbled, tears spilled down Sienna's cheeks, hot and unstoppable. Why would you do this? You do not even know him. You have never met Leo, because he matters to you, which means he matters to me, Damien said, reaching up to brush away her tears with his thumbs, cradling her face between his palms. Because watching you destroy yourself to save him is not something I can stand by and allow to continue. Because I have more money than I could spend in 5 lifetimes, and it means absolutely nothing if I cannot use it to help the woman I love. The words hung in the air between them, huge and terrifying and impossibly beautiful. Sienna searched his face for any hint of manipulation, of ulterior motives, of the predatory behavior she had been warned about her entire professional life. All she found was sincerity, vulnerability, and a longing that matched the ache in her own chest. I am falling in love with you too, she whispered, the admission feeling like stepping off a cliff into open air. I have been fighting it for so long, telling myself it was impossible, that you would never see me that way. But Damien, this is so complicated. The power dynamics, the company policies, What people will say about me. Damien smiled, soft and genuine in a way she had never seen before. Then we handle the complications together. I spoke with HR and the board last week. Before tonight, if we pursue a relationship, you would report directly to Victoria Hayes instead of me. We would need to disclose everything officially, follow all proper protocols. It can be done ethically, Sienna. We can do this the right way. The decision that redefined everything. You planned this, she said, feeling dizzy again. But this time from possibility other than exhaustion. I have been planning this for 4 months, Damien admitted, waiting for the courage to tell you, hoping you might feel even a fraction of what I feel. Tonight, when you collapsed, when I caught you and felt how light you were, how your body was consuming itself just to keep functioning, I realized I could not wait any longer. Life is too short and too unpredictable to let fear win. Sienna thought about Leo, about the experimental treatment that might actually save his life, about the promotion she had genuinely earned through her own merit, about the man holding her who looked at her like she had hung every star in the night sky. She thought about the risks, the inevitable gossip, the judgment from people who would always assume the worst. Then she thought about living the rest of her life, wondering what if. What if she had been brave enough to take the leap? What if she had trusted that sometimes good things happen to people who work hard and deserve them? What if love did not have to be complicated and impossible? What if it could simply be real and true and worth fighting for? Ask me, she said, her voice stronger now, more certain. Ask me properly. Damien's smile widened, his eyes crinkling at the corners in a way that made him look younger, lighter, almost boyish. Sienna Torres, would you do me the extraordinary honor of having dinner with me tomorrow night? Not as your boss, not as a business obligation, but as a man who is completely captivated by you and wants to spend every possible moment learning everything there is to know about you. Yes, Sienna breathed, and then louder, more certain, more alive than she had felt in years. Yes, I would love to have dinner with you. Yes to the promotion I have earned. Yes to letting someone help carry the weight for once. Yes to all of it, Damien. Yes to everything. He leaned down slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away, to change her mind, to retreat to safety. Instead, Sienna rose to meet him, her lips finding his in a kiss that was soft and sweet and full of promise. His arms tightened around her, pulling her closer as the kiss deepened, becoming something more urgent, more real, more necessary than breathing. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Damien pressed his forehead against hers. I am going to spend every single day proving to you that this was the right choice, that I am worthy of your trust, your time, your heart. I believe you, Sienna whispered, and realized with surprise that she meant it completely. Against all logic, against every warning voice in her head, she believed him with her entire soul. 6 weeks of transformation painted the city in shades of rose gold and amber as Sienna stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her new apartment, cradling a cup of coffee that still felt like an impossible luxury. 6 weeks since the gala, and her entire world had shifted on its axis in ways she was still processing, still learning to trust as real and permanent rather than a beautiful dream that might evaporate. Leo had qualified for the clinical trial and was already showing remarkable responses to the treatment. The experimental protocol was aggressive, demanding, sometimes brutally difficult, but for the first time in 2 years, his doctors used words like promising and encouraging and hopeful. For the first time since his diagnosis, Sienna allowed herself to believe her brother might actually survive this nightmare, might actually have a future worth planning for. She had quit both her second and third jobs, and the simple act of sleeping through the night in her own bed still felt novel enough to bring tears of gratitude. The promotion had been announced officially 2 weeks after the gala, following proper HR protocols, formal interviews with the board, and a presentation of her strategic vision that had earned genuine respect from even her harshest skeptics. The salary increase meant she could afford this apartment closer to the hospital, could buy fresh groceries without calculating every dollar, could breathe without the constant vice of financial panic squeezing her chest, until she could not think straight, learning to be loved. But it was the evenings that had transformed her most profoundly. Learning to be loved, to be cherished, to matter to someone beyond her utility or productivity. Damien had been patient, careful, devastatingly attentive in ways that made her heart ache with tenderness. Their first official date had been at a small Brazilian restaurant in Queens, far from corporate haunts where colleagues might spot them. He had asked about her childhood, her dreams, her favorite books and music. He had listened like every word was precious, had laughed at her stories, had shared his own vulnerabilities about growing up under crushing family expectations in a dynasty that valued profit over people. The second date, he had attempted to cook for her in his penthouse. The chicken had been slightly dry and the risotto oddly crunchy, but they had laughed until her sides hurt, and he had ordered Vietnamese food while she sat on his granite countertop telling him about Leo's obsession with astrophysics and dreams of studying distant galaxies. That was the night he had kissed her properly for the first time, backing her against the refrigerator with a hunger that made her knees weak, his hands mapping her body with reverent exploration, learning what made her gasp, what made her arch into his touch. They had not progressed beyond heated kisses and wandering hands, both wanting to build something solid before adding physical intimacy to the already complicated mix. The night she had finally stayed over, curled in his bed with her head on his chest, had felt like coming home to a place she never knew existed. Damien had held her through the night, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear, and whispered promises about the future that made her believe in fairy tales again. When reality intruded, a knock on her office door pulled Sienna from her reverie. She turned to find Victoria Hayes from the executive suite standing in the doorway, her expression carefully neutral, but her eyes warm with something like understanding. "Got a minute?" Victoria asked, not waiting for an answer before entering and closing the door behind her with deliberate care. "Of course." Sienna gestured to the chairs facing her desk, her stomach tightening with apprehension. She and Victoria had always been cordial, but not close, their interactions limited to quarterly reviews and budget presentations. Victoria sat, smoothing her skirt with precise movements. "I wanted to talk to you about something delicate. There's been considerable talk around the office about how you obtained this promotion, about the timing, about your relationship with Damien." There it was, the confrontation Sienna had been dreading since accepting the position. She forced herself to remain calm, to meet Victoria's gaze steadily. "I am aware people have opinions about my relationship with Damien and the timing of my promotion. I am not here to judge you," Victoria said, surprising her. "I am here to tell you that I have been working in this company for 16 years. I have seen people promoted for far worse reasons than actual talent and merit. Your campaign work speaks for itself, Sienna. Anyone who bothers to examine the numbers objectively can see you earned this position." Sienna felt her throat tighten with unexpected emotion. "Thank you. That means more than you know." The warning that proved prophetic, however, Victoria continued, leaning forward slightly. "There are people who will never believe that, who will always assume you slept your way into this office. You need to be prepared for that reality, especially if you and Damien continue your relationship publicly." "We have been careful," Sienna said. "We disclosed everything to HR. I report to you now instead of directly to Damien. We follow every protocol religiously. Protocols do not stop gossip," Victoria said, her expression softening with something like sympathy. "I am not trying to scare you. I just want you to be ready for the long game. This will not blow over quickly. Every success you have will be attributed to him. Every mistake will be magnified as proof you did not deserve the position." The warning proved prophetic faster than Sienna anticipated. 3 days later, a major client presentation went disastrously wrong when a server failure corrupted her slides 15 minutes into the pitch. She had improvised brilliantly, delivering key points from memory and using the whiteboard to sketch concepts. But the client had ultimately decided to go with a competing firm. The whispers started immediately. She heard them in the break room, saw them in the carefully averted eyes of colleagues who had been friendly just days before. "Guess," Sleeping with the boss does not make you competent. Wonder how long before he realizes his mistake. She was never qualified for this position anyway. The test of Sienna locked herself in her office after the failed presentation, fighting back tears of frustration and humiliation. She had worked 5 weeks on that pitch, had poured her creativity and expertise into every detail. The technical failure was not her fault, but in the court of office opinion, it was all the evidence needed to confirm everyone's worst assumptions. The knock on her door was soft but insistent. "Sienna, it is me. Please let me in." She recognized Damien's voice and hesitated. Having him comfort her now would only fuel more gossip, would only confirm what everyone already believed. But the need for his presence won out over caution. She unlocked the door, and he slipped inside, closing it behind him with deliberate care. "I heard what happened," Damien said, crossing to her in 3 long strides. "The tech team confirmed it was a catastrophic server issue completely beyond your control. The client knows that. It does not matter," Sienna said, her voice flat with defeat. "They chose the other firm anyway, and everyone out there is using this as absolute proof that I do not belong in this position." Damien's jaw tightened with anger, but when he reached for her, his touch was infinitely gentle. "Sienna, look at me." She forced herself to meet his eyes, expecting to see disappointment or regret or doubt. Instead, she found fierce pride and unwavering support. "You are going to lose clients sometimes," Damien said firmly. "That is the fundamental nature of this business. I have lost dozens of major deals over the years. Do you know what separates good executives from great ones? Not a perfect success rate, but how they respond to failure, how they learn, how they come back stronger. The choice to stand strong with the best marketing director we ever had. Thomas Chen had a failure rate of nearly 30% on new client pitches." Damien continued. "Do you know what his retention rate was on existing clients? 98%. Because he was brilliant at building relationships and delivering results over time. Thomas Chen did not have everyone assuming he got his job by sleeping with the CEO," Sienna said bitterly. "No, he had people assuming he got it because his father was on the board of directors," Damien countered, which was partially true, by the way. His father absolutely got in the interview, but Thomas earned the position through his work, just like you did. The difference is he did not let the gossip define him or limit his potential. Damien cupped her face in his hands, forcing her to hold his gaze. "I know this is hard. I know every day feels like you are being judged and found wanting by people who have never bothered to actually examine your work. But Sienna, you cannot let them win. You cannot let fear and doubt steal the success you have genuinely earned. What if they are right?" The question came out small and broken. "What if I only got this position because of us? Then explain to me how you increased client retention by 48% before we ever went on a single date," Damien challenged. "Explain how you redesigned the digital strategy that saved millions before I ever told you how I felt. Explain how you have closed 4 major deals in the 6 weeks since your promotion, maintaining a success rate higher than anyone else in the department." He leaned down, pressing his forehead against hers. "You're exceptional, Sienna Torres. With or without me, you would have risen to the top of this company. I just had the privilege of recognizing it earlier than most, and the courage to fight for you when you needed someone in your corner." The promise of tomorrow. Sienna closed her eyes, letting his words sink in, letting herself believe them. The fear and doubt did not disappear entirely, but they quieted enough for her to hear the truth beneath them. She was genuinely good at her job. She had earned this position through her own merit, and she loved a man who saw her worth even when she struggled to see it herself. "I love you," she whispered. The words still new enough to feel momentous every time she said them. "I love you too," Damien murmured against her lips. "Now what do you say we go home, order an unreasonable amount of Thai food, and you can tell me your plan for winning back that client in 6 months when their contract with the competitor expires." Sienna laughed despite everything, the sound watery but genuine. You think I can win them back? I know you can, Damien said with absolute certainty. Because you are Sienna Torres, and you do not quit. You do not let obstacles stop you. You find a way forward even when the path seems impossible. That is who you are, with or without me. 3 months later, Sienna stood in that same office, watching another sunrise paint the city gold. Leo's treatment was progressing better than anyone had dared hope. The tumor markers dropping week by week. The client from the failed presentation had reached out personally, asking for a meeting to discuss bringing their account back to Meridian Industries, and the whispers, while not entirely gone, had quieted as her track record of success became impossible to dismiss. Damien's arms wrapped around her from behind, his chin resting on top of her head as they watched the city wake up together. They had developed routines over the past months, meeting at his penthouse most evenings, cooking together, talking for hours, building a foundation of trust and intimacy that felt unshakable. I have been thinking, Damien murmured, his voice still rough with sleep, about the future, about us, about what comes next. Sienna turned in his arms, finding his grey eyes serious and tender. Should I be worried? Only if you hate the idea of spending the rest of your life with me, Damien said, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Because Sienna, I cannot imagine my future without you in it. Not as my employee, not as my marketing director, but as my partner in everything that truly matters. Her breath caught as he reached into the pocket of his pajama pants and pulled out a small velvet box. I know it has only been a few months. I know people will say we are moving too fast. But when you know absolutely. And I have known since the moment I caught you in my arms that you were going to change my life forever. Damien opened the box to reveal a stunning ring, the sapphire catching the sunrise and throwing blue fire across the walls. Sienna Torres, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life catching you when you fall, celebrating your victories, and loving you with everything I have? Tears streamed down Sienna's face as she nodded, unable to find words adequate for the moment. Yes, she finally managed. Yes, 1,000 times yes, as Damien slid the ring onto her finger and kissed her with a passion that promised forever. Sienna realized that sometimes the best love stories do start with falling down, but the truly magical ones are about finding someone who not only catches you, but chooses to build a life with you. One sunrise at a time, one challenge at a time, one moment of grace at a time. They had started with a collapse and a catch. They would continue with love, trust, and the courage to face whatever came next together. And that, she thought as Damien held her close, was the most beautiful story of all.